short weeks away, and Rumpure Sports is gearing up for the season with the best deal in DFS.
For a limited time only, we are offering new members a 15% discount for the life of their subscription, including SaberSim subs. Simply use the promo code NFL15 when subscribing to take advantage of this great deal before our prices go up.
And at RPS, we don't just give you access to one sport. When you subscribe to our premium service, we give you access to all of our content, including NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, and so much more.
And we're not going to charge extra for access to our preseason content either. Our memberships include all of our content, including the NFL preseason. The best DFS players in the industry give you access to their core plays and slate strategies for every sport and for every slate. Simplify your lineup building process by plugging in picks directly from the top players in the world. Watch our premium live streams to gain a huge edge on the competition. Our guys are live up to lock for the biggest slates, walking you through their last-minute decisions, analyzing breaking news and injury alerts for the major sports.
Again, for a limited time only, you can access our industry-leading DFS content for 15% off our already low price. SaberSim packages are included, so sign up today using the promo code NFL15 for 15% off your subscription for life and start building winning lineups today.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Week 1 NFL. The long wait is finally over. It's here. We're talking NFL Week 1 Millie Maker Roundtable, running it back with my guy SNYDER, newcomer LOX, joining us on the Millie Maker Show, going game by game, talking Millie Maker strategies, both DraftKings, FanDuel, different buy-ins, different strategies, all the best plays, and hopefully picking some winners. We will also be giving away a $333 Wildcat ticket to a member. So if you're a member, get in the live show chat on the Discord and compete for that. Make us laugh. Put in some good strategy, whatever it may be. We'll be picking a winner at some point during the show. If you are not a member and would like to be, now is a good time to join. You can use promo code NFL15. Get in there, and that does give you 15% off payment for the life of your account, so long as you never cancel and stick with us. With that, we got 13 games to talk about, so we're going to jump right into it. SNYDER, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Back in the football season, back in the grind here. We got college football during the day, and then we finish the night off with the Millie Maker Roundtable, and then get into the meat and potatoes tomorrow with everything. Looking forward to it. Glad to be back with you, DC. It's awesome to have LOX with us this year, so looking to dive into stuff with you guys.
Yeah, couldn't be more excited for Week 1. Of course, busy weekend. Congratulations once again to Big T shipping the FanDuel live final for $500K yesterday. Hopefully we'll get someone can best him. You know, one of us three, a member at RPS, maybe get up to the top of the Millie Maker. We shall see tomorrow. LOX, how you doing, man? Give the people a little background on your experience in DFS. I know you kind of just started here at RPS, so yeah, talk to the people. How's it going? And yeah, I'm sure you're excited for Week 1 as well.
Yeah, definitely excited. Glad to be here with you guys. Obviously, joining Rumpure Sports. It feels good. I appreciate it, all the welcoming and everything. Congrats to Big T as well. Obviously, a big win yesterday. Huge, and hopefully we can take down the Millie, one of us, like you just said. Got started in DFS a few years ago. Really just started taking it on fully the last couple years, to be honest. Had a good year last year. Took down a couple tournaments, NBA, NFL. I play golf too, but I don't know. I kind of dabble in everything here and there, but I'd say NFL and NBA are probably my two best ones. But other than that, I'm excited to get started. I'm excited for football to start up.
Well, we can tell you're a highly valued member because you already got the RPS swag. It took me over a year to get my first piece. So clearly we value LOX and your input. Awesome player. And excited to have you on the show this year. With that, let's jump into the first game of the night of the day. We're going to go by the DraftKings order of games if you're following along, just the order that they have listed. Obviously, most of these games start at the same time, but that's the best way for us to do it. So let's start Philadelphia Eagles, Detroit Lions, this one in Detroit, but it is the Eagles that are decent favorites here, 5-point favorites over the Lions, 48.5 total. And I think potentially the highest owned quarterback on this slate could come from this game. Jalen Hurts. We don't know exactly who it will be. I could see Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray being up there too, but Jalen Hurts is going to have ownership. I think his weapons will be somewhat owned. Obviously, the addition of A.J. Brown going to make a big difference, presumably for Jalen Hurts. He can do damage with his legs. And then on the Detroit side, this is an offense that I think is going to do some damage this year as well. A really good offensive line. Jared Goff, not a guy that you're necessarily going to want to roster too much himself, but he does have some good weapons that I think are very much in play. So this one, I think, has absolutely shootout potential. I actually think this one goes over that 48.5 total. And I think this one could have some fantasy goodness involved. So we'll start with you, Lox. What do you see between Philadelphia and Detroit here?
Yeah, I like the game. I'm leaning more towards the Philly side on this one, but like you said, I think that's going to be the higher owned of the two. Hurts is definitely going to be one of the highest owned quarterbacks out there, I think, in this matchup. So I wouldn't mind really getting away from him. I don't like Goff at all, but I do like on the other side DeAndre Swift. I think he's going to have a stellar year. A lot of people might be on him, but I think for good reason. He's a good back, catches out of the backfield, everything else. I like the addition of A.J. Brown for Jalen Hurts. I think it kind of helps Devontae Smith a little bit, honestly, this year. And then obviously Goddard's always a good target for him as well. But I'm probably not playing too much of this game. I do like it. I agree with you. I think it goes over the 48.5, but I'm going to play more in the afternoon games.
Yeah, makes sense. I think one reason I like this game, it sounds like I'm a little bit higher on it than you are, Lox, is because I think where most of the production is going to come from. Obviously, from the Philly side, you have Jalen Hurts, who can do damage with his legs. He can get there. He's not a guy you necessarily have to. You could play him naked, right? He could score a couple touchdowns with the legs and get there almost on his own. And I'm a big proponent of double stacking on a lot of the quarterbacks I play, but he's one where I would most likely stick to just one wide receiver, just because a lot of the damage Hurts will do presumably would be with the legs. You can go for both wide receivers with him. Snyder, do you have a preference between A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith? Who do you think is going to be the number one in this offense? I think the general consensus is it's going to be A.J. Brown that takes over that role, but we don't know that for sure. There's a lot of uncertainty in week one. Devonta Smith is a talented receiver, second-year receiver in his own right. So I'm interested to see how that shakes out. Of course, you have Dallas Goedert as well. I'm not going to a guy like Miles Sanders, but maybe you are, Snyder. What do you see here in this game in general?
Yeah, I actually like this game quite a bit from a stacking standpoint from both sides. I think Jalen Hurts is going to take that next step forward this year. I was high on him in the best ball streets this year. I think he was one of my top exposed quarterbacks coming in. He's going to be one of the highest owned quarterbacks of the slate. I think he's going to be the cash guy that everyone kind of gravitates to this week. So I definitely like him. And then from the receiving standpoint there, A.J. Brown, him and Hurts are good buddies off the field. So I think they're going to have some pretty good collaborations going there. I think A.J. Brown's probably going to come in like maybe 10 to 15% ownership, which isn't too much. But like you said, Devonta Smith, I think is going to come in around half of that. So if you're looking to kind of get a little bit different with your Jalen Hurts, if he's going to be that popular, I think going to Devonta Smith. He had some pretty big games last year. He had, I think, like 3 or 4 games where he hit like 20, 25 points. He's one of those guys with another year under his belt in the NFL system. He's like those sophomore guys, the second year, so he's kind of takes some surges there. So I think he's a guy that can definitely do that. Dallas Goedert, I think he's going to be one of the more popular spend down tight ends if you're looking to save some money. 4,500 is a great price tag for him. I think he works well with that double stack. And then if you're looking to run it back, I mean, we were on Aroma St. Brown a lot last year at the end of the season. I mean, he was one of the main guys for us. JT Hayes was always on him. I think he had a touchdown like in the last 5 games. I think he scored like it was right around I think he was averaging like 26 points over the last 6 games of the season last year. I think he's gonna jump in right where he left off. Jameson Williams is still hurt. He's not going to be playing yet. So I think Roma St. Brown is the guy I would be looking to bring it back with. I think he's going to be pretty well low owned. I haven't been hearing his name much this year. So I think he's solid. DeAndre Swift was another guy I was really high on in best ball coming into the season. With all that, I think he's going to be one of those. I think there's going to be a group of running backs that are going to be like in that 15% ownership range. He'll be one of those guys. I think he's fine if you want to run it back with him. You can kind of stack this game up. What is it, 48 point total? So it's one of the higher ones. It's not one of the two in the 50s, but I think this definitely has shootout potential.
Yeah, I think this game is sneaky. Like you said, sitting just below that 50 total, maybe that holds ownership in check. Another thing that will hold ownership in check for the Lions guys, you mentioned Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I do think is a good play at 6,100, is the fact that nobody's playing Goff, right? Goff is going to have no ownership, and I'm not recommending playing Goff, but the quarterbacks that have the teams with quarterbacks that have no ownership, right? Everyone like stacking, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, people weren't quite as aware of it, but everybody's aware of it now. Everybody's trying to stack. So if you're looking at receivers, pass catchers, on teams with quarterbacks who will have no ownership, those guys are just going to be lower owned almost by default. I think that's true for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I actually think the other two guys for Detroit are interesting here too. Like you said, Jameson Williams, their number one pick, not ready to play. It's going to be a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, obviously, in that 11 personnel with Hawkinson and one of the 2 running backs. But I think Amon-Ra St. Brown, of course, is going to be out there all game. But I think DJ Chark coming over from Jacksonville, very, very talented dude. I think he won the, what is the wide receiver of the year? Yeah, back in college. Like was in that dysfunctional system in Jacksonville, but he's a 6'4" burner who has just been in a rough situation so far. I mean, there's no reason he couldn't make a couple big plays down the field. He's projecting, we've got St. Brown, I think is going to be between 7 and 10% owned, something like that. I think Chark will be between, 2 and 5% owned and going to be on the field, I think, almost every play. And then if you want to go even crazier off the board, Josh Reynolds, I think, is going to have, 80 to 90% snap share. He's got some good chemistry with Jared Goff. He's 3,600 on DraftKings, and I think he's going to be under 1% owned. So there are, I think, some sneaky plays, some good run backs. If you're on the Jalen Hurts, you can stack them with Devonta Smith, AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, 2 of those 3 if you want to. Bring it back with one of these Detroit wide receivers. Even Hawkinson, I think, is in play. You could even bring back the Hurts stacks with DeAndre Swift if you wanted to, right? The passing down back, he could have a big game if the Eagles get out to a big lead in this one. So I see a lot of different ways to try to put up some big scores. Looks like a good game overall to me. So I'll be in on the Eagles here and the Lions, expecting big scores out of this one and potentially some low-owned gems in this Philadelphia-Detroit game, especially on the Detroit side. I do like the Philly side better, but once you take into account the ownership and the prices, I think there's some really sneaky plays on the Lions side of the ball. Let's move on to the next game on the slate. It is Baltimore and the New York Jets. Baltimore 7-point favorites here. Kind of a pedestrian 44 team total. Lamar Jackson, of course, has as much upside as anybody with the legs. He didn't get the contract from Baltimore, which is interesting, but I don't really think that affects this slate. I expect him to be his normal self. Of course, Baltimore did trade away Hollywood Brown. The assumption is it will be Rashad Bateman who takes over as that number 1 wide receiver. I think they'll mix in other guys. I don't really see a wide receiver in Baltimore that's really relevant outside of Bateman. And then, of course, you've got Mark Andrews, who is expected to, number 1, number 2 tight end, depending on how you rank him and Kelsey. And possible sneaky play in Isaiah Likely. I see you smiling, Snyder, so I won't steal your thunder. Maybe you're on the Likely train too, but I think they're going to play a lot of 2 tight end sets. Likely is kind of a hybrid wide receiver / tight end. I think he's going to be out there, frankly, for, at least 50% of the game, maybe more than that. And he could potentially be the number 2 or 3 option out of the passing game for the Ravens. So he's kind of sneaky, but yeah, Snyder, we'll throw it right back to you. Baltimore and the Jets. What do you see?
Yeah, I've got a lot of conviction with the Ravens here. I do like to target the Ravens when they're playing these bad teams. They usually come out and just lay the wood to some of these bad teams. They're not afraid to step on the pedal and keep it going and beat teams 45-7 or something like that. I think that's a deal we're going to see here. We got Lamar Jackson coming in with a chip on the shoulder without getting that contract. He's going to kind of prove it this year, it looks like. So I'm definitely looking forward to playing him. So I think he's going to come out motivated. And then, yeah, I definitely like Mark Andrews there. 6,800, that's a fair price tag. I think he's one of the best tight ends in the league. I mean, he had some monster games last year. And then Isaiah Likely, he's that guy they drafted from Coastal Carolina, comes out in the preseason, has a couple good games in the preseason. Week 1 preseason, 4 targets, 4 catches, 44 yards. Comes out week 2 in the preseason, catches all 8 of his targets for 100 yards and a touchdown. And they set him down. They're like, "You're not playing in the 3rd preseason game. You're too much. You mean too much to this team now." So I think he's going to be like the number 3 pass catcher here. And we got him for 2,500 this week, which I don't think we're going to see him there much more. I think I would project him to have 4 or 5 catches this game pretty easily. I think he's going to be out there quite a bit. Rashad Bateman, I'm not really sold on him. I mean, he's another guy like Hollywood Brown. I mean, they're just kind of smaller gadget type players. I mean, I think Bateman is a little better than Hollywood Brown. I think he's going to have a chance to step forward here in his 2nd year. 5,300 is a fine price tag. And I think you could even run doubles with Lamar here. I don't think many people do because they think he's got too much rushing upside, but I'm definitely in on that. I haven't heard any definitive news on J.K. Dobbins yet, whether he's going to play or not, but I don't want to play Mike Davis. I think he averaged like 2.3 yards per carry last year. Don't want anything to do with him. Kenyon Drake's there too. I think Kenyon Drake's priced up too high, though. I couldn't imagine paying $5,000 for Drake on this slate. So I think I'll be avoiding the rush game. I was very high on Dobbins coming into the year in the best ball streets when he was going like round 7, round 8. So definitely high on him going forward into the season. But I think I'm going to have quite a bit of Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, and I might even play the both tight ends. I don't think anybody's going to do that for like a million maker play like we're talking here. Just roll both tight ends. I don't think anyone's going to do that. And like one of those millionaire makers like that $5 was like 1.1 million entries. So you got to get different. I had a question for you guys. I was kind of diving into some Millie research this offseason. And I think I'm going to focus more so on single stacks. I think in those large type fields, I think you need so much to go right for you there. I think some of those double stacks are kind of, I think, I can't remember what it was. AP had the breakdown on what like single stacks, double stacks, what won the million makers. I think it was actually kind of surprisingly that it wasn't as many double stacks. Do you guys have an opinion on that? I think for like the smaller fields, you can definitely double stack and bring it back and stuff. You guys have any thoughts on that heading into the season for the million maker strategy?
Yeah, Lox, why don't you give your thoughts on single versus double stacks?
In the million maker, I mean, personally, I go more single stacks, to be dead honest with you. I'm not a huge fan of double stack unless I really like a team and I have them super high. But yeah, as far as a million maker goes, that doesn't shock me at all just because of how many games there are, how many opportunities there are. Yeah. And there's so many ways to get different. You really got to hit it off if you do double stack it. And yeah, I lean more towards the single stack, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that makes sense. For me, I'll use both. For Lamar Jackson, I wouldn't double stack with him. I get getting different, but exactly. Just the passing yardage to me isn't going to be there. There are situations though where I think you can do it. You need a passer, kind of the traditional pocket type passers, right? Your Tom Brady's, your Patrick Mahomes, guys that are projected to throw for a lot of touchdowns and throw for a lot of yards and receptions as well. I do think it makes more sense to do it on DraftKings rather than FanDuel, because FanDuel, you need the touchdowns, right? Whereas DraftKings, you can get a bunch of receptions. One guy can get the touchdowns. Maybe the other receiver gets 10 catches for 130 yards and can get there that way. But yeah, so I want, prolific quarterbacks that are going to throw a lot for a lot of completions, yards, and touchdowns. And then I'm more likely to do it with the expensive quarterbacks too, right? If you're playing Patrick Mahomes, he has to have a monster game to get to the optimal because he's so expensive. He's got to have a huge game anyway to get your team anywhere close to, a top 100 type team. If he does that, he's got a decent chance of bringing 2 guys with him. So I don't think there's a hard and fast rule if you should double or single. but just make sure to consider who you're doing each type of stack with would be my advice for that. But it's certainly a legitimate question. More and more people are looking at, stacking, double stacks, the run backs, all that stuff, trying to get as much correlation into your lineup as possible. So I'll definitely have both. But yeah, it just kind of depends on the quarterback and the team in question. Lox, give us your breakdown here of Baltimore and the New York Jets.
Yeah, I don't mind the game. I'm kind of leaning. I like Lamar Jackson a lot, and I think he's going to be low owned. Right now, I have him at 6-7-ish%. I don't know what you guys are seeing, but to me, I think that's pretty low. And all the other QBs around him, I'm willing to get a little bit different with Lamar, especially with the contract talks and everything. I do think he comes out with a fire under him. And my single stack there would be Mark Andrews. I just don't trust any of those receivers yet. I have to see it from Bateman in order to believe that he's really taken over the Marquise Brown role a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm leaning on that side. I'm not going to touch the running backs. That backfield looks like an absolute mess to me right now, especially with the Dobbins being questionable. I don't want to make everybody hate me and say I'll take Joe Flacco, but I might have a few shares of him here or there, obviously.
Joe Flacco, Lox.
Come on.
First Maker show, and we're going to Joe Flacco.
No, if you throw in 150, you got to have him in some under 1%. Come on. I'm not saying
I'll have 150, but I will not have Joe Flacco. So you don't have to.
one or two of your lineups. Come on, DC.
One lineup. I'll throw in one with Joe Flacco.
There you go. Throw him in one. You can get a whole lot worked around him.
Yeah, I don't need. I'll just drink one fewer beers at the bar. That $5. I don't need it anyway.
No, I'm off of the Jets side. In all honesty, I just had to throw the Flacco out there for all them lovers that are like, hey, he's only 4.8. He's 4.8 for a reason.
Yeah, even the Jets receivers. I mean, I think they're going to use a 4-man rotation. Of course, Elijah Moore, I expect to lead the way, but Corey Davis, their rookie, Garrett Wilson, Braxton Berrios, I think is going to get a bunch of snaps in the slot. I mean, who knows where the ball is going to go there. Elijah Moore would be the guy that I'd be most likely to play at 5,100, but still, I don't think I'll end up on much of him. Any interest in these Jets running backs, Lox? Michael Carter had a good year last year, and then they drafted Breece Hall. I think was the first running back taken, I believe. But I mean, from what I've read, I think it's going to be Carter's going to get the start, I think almost certainly. And then from there, I kind of expect close to a 50-50 split. I can't get to either of these guys in a tough matchup when there's so many good running backs on the board this week.
Yeah, I'm with you. I tend to stay away from split backfields, to be honest. I don't like playing them at all. Michael Carter, he did have a good year, but I'm a little worried Breece Hall is, like you said, going to make it more of a 50-50 split. And in that case, I'd rather stay away and pay up a little bit more for some of the better guys.
Yeah, I'm pretty much completely off the Jets. We'll have some Lamar stacks, and then I'll definitely have just some Isaiah Likely. I mean, he's 2,500 on DraftKings. We think he's going to be involved. Tight end's a tough position anyway. He makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm in on the Likely call. I'll mix in some Andrews and then a decent portion of Lamar, but mostly, actually probably entirely staying off of the Jets outside of that one Joe Flacco team that Lox is making me play. The New Orleans Saints and Atlanta Falcons are next. Another road favorite here. I think I read or heard, I can't remember which podcast, too many podcasts out there, but road favorites. There's like more road favorites than in any week in like 25 years or something crazy. So it's kind of week one is always full of chaos, but I think especially this week, we're going to see some crazy results, some unexpected results. But it is the Saints that are 5.5-point favorites here. A 43 total, relatively low. Of course, we've got kind of new quarterbacks coming in for both of these teams. Jameis Winston going to take over for the New Orleans Saints, and Marcus Mariota going to start for the Falcons. I think this will be a game. I'm not sure how much exposure I'll have to it, but I'll be watching closely to see how these teams perform. I do think there could be some sneaky good stuff in DFS here. We are waiting on Michael Thomas, who, as far as I can tell, is kind of a game time-ish call. I think this one could go either way. There's not that many situations throughout the league that are kind of 50-50 calls. Seems like Michael Thomas is one of them. And actually, the Falcons have one too. Rookie Drake London is questionable and a game time call here too. So yeah, kind of a lot of moving parts. Of course, our exposure to this game, if any, will kind of depend on how if London and Thomas play. But let's go right back to you, Lox. What do you see between the Saints and the Falcons here?
I'll be honest, I'm off of this game. I don't really have much on this one. Like you said, just too many questionable tags, too many unknowns, but I will be tuning in for sure. Obviously, we want to see how these teams play out. I don't like Winston. I don't like Mariota at QB. The only player I'll really dabble with on this game is Alvin Kamara. And actually, I like Chris Olave or Olave. Help me with the pronunciation on that one.
I think Olave, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how you say it. But I actually like him, the rookie coming in. I think he might be solid. And then obviously he depends on if Michael Thomas plays too, but I still think he'll get his fair share of targets. He's going to be super low owned, and that's actually probably my sleeper in this game a little bit. But yeah, like I said, I'm kind of staying away from this entire game.
Yeah, if Michael Thomas sits, Olave, I'll have a decent amount of exposure to him. I don't think I'll go there much if Michael Thomas plays, but listen, Olave, New Orleans traded significant draft capital to move up in the draft to get this guy. He's had good camp reports. He's a deep threat. He's 4,500. And Jameis, I mean, you know, for all of Jameis's faults, and there are many, he's produced a lot of good wide receivers with him throughout his career. He's not afraid to throw the ball downfield. And even if he's throwing interceptions, I mean, that's not a bad thing for Chris Olave, a Jameis pick six or whatever. So if Thomas sits, again, it's hard to know what Olave, you know, what his usage is going to be like, but he is going to start. He is going to be on the, especially if Thomas is out, he's going to be on the field, I think, almost every play. And I think he's got big potential. I mean, Jameis isn't going to be afraid to throw the ball to a rookie. We know Jameis is going to throw the ball downfield. It's just what he does. So I think Olave is interesting. Alvin Kamara, I mean, who's his backup? Like 50-year-old Mark Ingram. I mean, Kamara could get a lot of work here. I think he's flying under the radar a little bit. We'll throw it to you here, Snyder, in a second. But one thing that I think is clear, at least to me, for the most part, you got to spend at running back this week. There's too many good ones. I mean, how many guys are there projected over 15 touches? There's got to be like 10, 12 running backs that are going to get big volume. That's not always the case, right? We're going to get bye weeks, injuries, but week one, a lot of these top stud backs are healthy and ready to go, and they're going to get a lot of work. I think Alvin Kamara among them. I've got a few more thoughts, Snyder, but why don't you give us your breakdown here of Saints and Falcons?
Yeah, definitely. I think the Saints are interesting here. They got an implied team total of 24 points, so that's relatively pretty high for this slate. Alvin Kamara is a guy I think is going to kind of get overlooked there. Pretty good a price there. Last year we were paying like in the 8Ks for him, so a little bit of a price savings there for him. He's one of those guys that's one of those top backs. I mean, we saw him get more carries than normal last year too before he got kind of nicked up there. So I'm going to be on some Alvin Kamara. I do like Chris Olave there. I think Michael Thomas, he's going to be out there running like his 7-yard slants and stuff. I don't think Winston's really going to work as well with him. I mean, Winston wants to chuck the ball. He wants to go deep. Olave is going to be out there. He's going to be running the deep outs. We saw his game-breaking ability at college level at Ohio State last year. He had a ton of big games for us there. So definitely, I like Chris Olave there, 4,500. I think that's a very good price tag. Then from the Atlanta Falcons side, it'll be interesting to see if Drake London gets it a go or not. But I do like Kyle Pitts quite a bit. The only thing that kind of worries me about with Kyle Pitts is if they try and match up Marshawn Lattimore against him. Marshawn Lattimore was a guy that, I mean, he's like taking away like Mike Evans, like those big time receivers. But if they can get Kyle Pitts on some linebackers and some safeties, I think he's going to be a huge matchup threat and a huge mismatch for teams going forward. I mean, he's just an absolute beast out there. So I like Kyle Pitts there, 5,700. He's actually pretty cheap on FanDuel too. He's got a 6K price tag over on FanDuel, so that's real tasty over there. So I'm going to have some Pitts definitely on FanDuel. And then, yeah, I like Kamara, and then maybe some Winston and Chris Olave stacks.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm in on Pitts too. He's my second favorite tight end on FanDuel. He obviously has that true game-breaking ability, right? There's not many tight ends who we saw it in the preseason. He can get behind a defense. I mean, he can legitimately score an 80-yard touchdown on any play. Any play, he's out there. He's capable of getting behind the defense. showed a good connection with Mariota. I actually think Mariota himself is a little bit interesting as a super low-owned Millie Maker play. Played really, really well in the preseason. I think he's better than people give him credit for. Was kind of in that run-first heavy offense in Tennessee, was hurt kind of toward the end of his run there, and is healthy now and good to go. The Saints defense is good, right? It's not some sort of safe play or anything like that. But I think Mariota, he's still got upside with his legs. He can still move around. He could score a couple touchdowns with his legs. He's capable of putting up 25 DraftKings points at 5,200. More capable, I think, than guys, like a Jared Goff, who maybe is safer, is going to throw for more yardage. I think Mariota is a better upside play than most of the quarterbacks, kind of down at that quarterback floor salary-wise. So I kind of like the Mariota, Kyle Pitts, Chris Olave stack if Michael Thomas ends up sitting. I'm not playing Michael Thomas even if he ends up playing here at 5,700. I just don't trust him with Winston, the hamstring. I'm not going.
I get a headache or something while he's out there. You never know.
Sounds like you guys are on the same page. Jarvis Landry for me, not enough upside. It's Chris Olave if you want to go to one of the New Orleans pass catchers. We'll have pretty good amount of exposure to Kamara, and then Pitts and Mariota as well. I don't think I'm going to the Atlanta, running backs, wide receivers, anything like that. Just Pitts and Mariota from the Atlanta side for me personally. Next game on the slate, New England going into Miami. I think this one, last time I checked, pretty close to a pick 'em. No, it is the Dolphins who are decent favorites here. 3.5 point favorites, 46 point team total. I kind of like this. Well, I like one player in this game. I'll just come out and say it. Chase Edmonds, I think, is the cheapest running back that I'm personally willing to play on this slate. I'm mostly spending up at running back, but I am willing to go to Chase Edmonds, who I think Locks could potentially be a workhorse back. I mean, his backup here is Raheem Mostert, who is 30 years old, has been injured his entire career, is a burner. But man, I think Edmonds is going to be the starter. I think he's the better pass catching back, and I think he's going to be the goal line back, frankly, as well. So yeah, I think Chase Edmonds, 5,200 on DraftKings, 5,800 on FanDuel. Looks like a pretty strong play. Of course, Miami has Tua, the combination of Waddle and Tyreek Hill. They're going to be interesting to watch. Miami is on how they play. I'm not a big Tua fan, but I think they've really built kind of a team around him that could be successful with short passing games, get some yards after the catch. And Edmonds fits that play style as well. So he's a play I'm pretty high on. The Patriots, man, I'm out on the Patriots in this game. Reports from camp preseason, their offense really struggling. They've got the co-offensive coordinators of Joe Judge and Matt Patricia, just weird stuff coming out of Miami. So I'm not going to them, but Chase Edmonds, I do like quite a bit. Locks, talk about New England and Miami here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on Chase Edmonds. I've been liking him all week. I think he's going to be a stud. They have a ton of playmakers in Miami, which I think is going to help Tua out a lot, just like you touched on. So Chase Edmonds definitely going to be, definitely the lowest I go. Like you said, I'm also with you on paying up for running back this week, so I'm not going any cheaper than him. I like Tyreek Hill. I like Waddle. Gesicki is always interesting because Tua loves him too. So if you're going to double stack, maybe this one, you could. I'm staying away from the entire Patriots side. I don't like anybody on the Patriots. They got a 50-50 split backfield too. We don't know who's going to take over that backfield between Harris and Stevenson. So I'm staying away from that, at least for the first week, because I don't know which direction they're going to go there. I actually wouldn't mind a Miami stack, to be honest with you, in this game. Maybe a Tua, Tyreek Waddle, or maybe throw in Gesicki instead of one of the receivers. If you don't go with Tua, then I'd like going the Edmonds route. But I like Miami a lot. I'm off the Patriots.
Yeah, so same page there. I'm playing 150 as well in both the $5 DraftKings Million Maker and the $4 FanDuel one. Tyreek Hill is just a guy I'm not especially high on him this week, but you got to have a little bit of exposure to him, just the game breaking ability. We don't know exactly how they're going to use him, but he just has so much upside to score a couple of long touchdowns, even with Tua instead of Mahomes. I'll have more Tyreek than Jalen Waddle, even though I kind of think Jalen Waddle has the higher floor, but at 6,400, it's not what I'm looking for on a Millie Maker team. Give me the speed with Tyreek Hill. Let's throw it to you, Snyder. What do you see, Miami and New England?
Yeah, I actually have some pretty good conviction on the Dolphins here. They got a pretty good team total right around 25 points here. I think Tua's got a really good price tag here, 5,700. It's a solid price tag for him. I think he's got the arm strength. He's got the accuracy. The accuracy's always been there for him. It looks like he's pushing the ball downfield more so in like the highlights we've seen from camp and stuff. And I really like the price tag on Tyreek Hill. He's at 6,800. We were used to paying for him like right around that 8K range when he was in Kansas City. I think the Dolphins are going to come out and kind of showcase him here as they just acquired him this offseason. Jalen Waddle is right there too at 6,400. We got Tyreek Hill. I've got him projected like right around 5 to 8% owned. So I think that's pretty good ownership on the upside that he brings in a game like this. I think the Patriots are one of those teams I'm looking to fade all year long. I would even take the under on their wins and such. Definitely against them this year. I think Mac Jones is fine, but I'm just too worried about they lost Josh McDaniels. Who knows what's going to go on the offensive side of the ball early on in the season. So I'm going to be completely avoiding the Patriots. I actually like the Miami Dolphins defense quite a bit. They had a lot of pressure, a lot of turnovers last year. A lot of people are going to be playing the Washington football team defense, and the Dolphins are like $100 more expensive. So I'll be looking to play the Dolphins defense as well in some tournaments and such.
Yeah, I actually like the Edmonds Dolphins defense combination. Edmonds is a question mark for me. Locks. Do you think I'm right? And he could have a very big role. I mean, the snap share, what do you see between him and Mostert? I think it's going to be something like 70-30 Edmonds. But do you think I'm right in that he could be the passing down back, the goal line back, or do you have a different assumption there?
No, like I said, I'm right with you on that. I was thinking 80-20, maybe 75-25.
Okay.
On that.
I didn't want to go overboard, but yeah, I agree with you. It could be even more.
Yeah, I really see Edmonds as a stud in that offense. I think he fits well with them, and I see a big year out of Chase Edmonds, to be honest with you. I'm right with you on that one.
Yeah.
The only thing that kind of worries me about that is we always see Mostert kind of come out strong at the start of the season. He plays like 3 or 4 really good games and then gets hurt for the year.
True.
But
he's just not a workhorse back though. Like,
yeah,
I think, I think they're going to mix him in. I think he's going to get his carries, but I don't see him, taking the job from Edmonds if Edmonds is healthy.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we could see 20 touches for Chase Edmonds in this game. I really do. So he is one of my favorite plays. He will be in my 10 under 10% article that will come out pretty shortly after the show. Got just a couple more players to finish writing up, but Edmonds will be in there. I'm seeing him projected around 6 to 8% ownership. I think that's a pretty good spot. I will say I do like playing him with 2 other running backs because I just think the running back plays are so strong that I don't necessarily want to give up one of those plays for Chase Edmonds, but I'm definitely willing to play him. Generally most weeks I'll be using wide receiver flexes. This week, I think 3 running backs is a pretty strong way to go, especially if you've got a guy like Chase Edmonds.
Do you have his price tag on FanDuel handy? What's he priced at over there?
5,800. He's
that's solid.
Yeah. I'll have plenty of exposure to Chase Edmonds on both sites, frankly. So that's Miami and New England. Let's go to the next game on the slate. Cincinnati Bengals, 6.5 point home favorites here over the Pittsburgh Steelers, 44 team total. Of course, big changes for the Steelers. It'll be Mitch Trubisky getting the start at QB, at least for now. So Kenny Pickett is, I think, kind of inevitably takes over, but won't be this game. It'll be Trubisky behind center. Looked okay in the preseason. Rookie George Pickens looked pretty awesome. Had an awesome touchdown catch in the preseason. He's a stud. I think he's interesting. He's cheap on both sides, 5,200 on FanDuel, 4,100 on DraftKings. You like the DraftKings price better, but I think Pickens, Snyder, is a kind of a FanDuel type player where I think if he's performing, I think he's going to score some touchdowns, right? A big dude. And, the Steelers are interesting here. It looks like Deontay Johnson is I think he's expected to play now, but it's not clear how healthy he is, but he's not really a touchdown guy. And then Chase Claypool, it sounds like they're moving him to the slot. It could be Pickens here who emerges as Trubisky's top target. We just don't know, right? That's one of the fun things about week one is we're operating, people are operating under the assumption that it's going to be Deontay Johnson as the number one target in Pittsburgh because that's what's happened in the past. But one, they didn't have Pickens in the past, and they've got a new quarterback. And Roethlisberger just loved throwing those little slants to, Deontay Johnson. Kind of a similar situation to Michael Thomas, I think. He loses Drew Brees, and it's very questionable to me, what the target share is going to look like in Pittsburgh. So Pickens is a guy I'm looking at. I'm seeing big ownership on Najee Harris. I think I'm mostly going to fade Najee Harris in this game, frankly. I think they're going to be behind. I think Cincinnati's going to put up points. Harris, he's going to get work, but he's not explosive. If you look at explosive runs, 20-plus yard runs, he just doesn't have very many. So he could certainly get there by volume. It's possible, but he's projected to be really high owned. So I do feel okay, at least, about the Harris fade. On the Cincinnati side, of course, you've got plenty of options, right? Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. You could go to a Tyler Boyd if you wanted to. I won't have all that much exposure to this game. I'm expecting a lower scoring game. I think Pittsburgh could struggle to move the ball. And then Cincinnati, I do expect them to put up points, but it's kind of hard to know where it's going to come from between Mixon and Higgins and Chase in a non-shootout game. And those guys are all expensive too. So sort of feels like an unnecessary risk on this particular slate, but maybe that's a hot take. I'm not sure. Snyder, we'll start with you. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. What do you see?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there on the George Pickens call. I think he's going to be the guy that's going to be the most fantasy point explosive guy on this offense. They targeted him early and often in the preseason. I think he's going to be the guy they're looking for. I like him over on FanDuel as well. I think he's going to be he's that big target. He's got a big frame. I think that he was a heck of a steal in the draft. I think if he wouldn't have got hurt in college, he would have been a top 5 pick. Tears his ACL, misses most of the season last year. I think he's a great value for them in the draft. I'm very high on him going into the year. 4,100 is a really good price tag on DraftKings, and he's cheap over on FanDuel as well. I'm going to be fading Najee Harris as well. I'm going to be fading this Pittsburgh team outside of George Pickens. And then from the Bengals standpoint, we had that In the Trenches show where they talked about Big T was on there. He had that new show starting. They talked about the biggest mismatch they thought was the Bengals offensive line versus Steelers defensive line rushing. So I'm going to be on Joe Mixon pretty high this week. I like the price tag there. I think he's going to be another one of those guys that's going to be like right around that 15% ownership range. So I definitely don't mind paying for him. I'm going to be kind of off of the Bengals passing attack, though, with you, too. I think this is going to be a tough divisional game. Hopefully it all goes through Mixon is what I'm thinking. I was extremely high on Jamar Chase last year. I thought he was going to have that huge year. We talked him up, me and Simon in the best balls, and then throughout the year I was on him quite a bit. But I think I'm going to be off him this week. 7,100. I like some other higher price receivers in the afternoon slate. So I'm going to be off of Chase, probably going to be off of Higgins. I think Higgins will be pretty popular. 6,100 is a great price tag for him. Tyler Boyd, I won't be on either. And then they get Hayden Hurst here, 3,300. It'll be interesting to see if anyone gravitates towards him. I don't think he's going to be owned. Probably under 5% there. I think he's an interesting guy if you wanted to spend down at tight end as well. 3,300 is a solid price tag, but definitely high on Joe Mixon. He's my favorite play in this game.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's go to you, Locks. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati.
Yeah, I'm with you on the fade of Harris. That's too high owned for me, and like you said, I'm spending up at running back as well. So I don't see any reason to play Najee. On the other side, though, at running back, I like Mixon. I'm with Snyder on that. He's going to be a little bit lower owned, and I don't mind paying a little more for him, obviously over Najee and that matchup. I do like the Bengals wide receivers, but I don't think I'm going to play them this week.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't like Trubisky at all. So I'm going to be off the Steelers at least this first week till I can see how this offense is going to run. I do not like the Steelers at all. I probably will have almost none of them. But as far as the Bengals goes, yeah, you can stack Burrow with a couple wide receivers. Hayden Hurst, like Snyder said, might be a little sneaky because nobody's going to play him, but Joe Burrow does like his tight ends. Like you said, I think I'm just with Joe Mixon in this game, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'll have some Mixon as well. I don't like him as much as some of the other backs. I'm a little worried about a potential lack of 3-down role for him. It kind of seems like Bengals obviously have Super Bowl aspirations. They kind of did it last year where they phased him out and, in the passing game a little bit, which obviously can get there on the ground. They can still throw to him on first and second down, but I don't think he's going to have quite the snap share of some of the other backs priced around him. Like, for instance, I'll take, an Alvin Kamara over Joe Mixon. I do get the play, and certainly, in the trenches, if Cincinnati can dominate the defensive line, it could be a big Mixon game. But I do have him, 8th to 10th or something like that in my running back. So I'll have some exposure there, but I just like other guys a little bit more. But yeah, pretty low on Pittsburgh, Cincinnati in general. We haven't really talked too much defenses yet, but I think the Bengals could be a good play here. I mean, it's Trubisky, right? That's what I want. I want to go up against quarterbacks who are mistake prone, who can make a couple boneheaded plays and you get a couple touchdowns with the defense. So Bengals defense, I think, certainly in play. I think they're pretty expensive, but I might be willing to go there myself. Let's go to the next game on the slate, Indianapolis Colts, Houston Texans. It is the Colts, sizable favorites here, touchdown, 7-point favorites over the Texans, another road favorite of 46 total. Let's go to you, Locks. Break down the Colts and the Texans for us.
Yeah, I don't mind this game. I'm not going to be on it a whole lot, but it's decent. It's got some pieces in there that I do like. Jonathan Taylor obviously is a stud. He's absolutely one of the backs I'm going to be paying up for at the top. Obviously, he's worth it. Had a great year last year and is just the GOAT really at running back for me.
Yeah.
He's going to be a stud all year. I think he's going to have another stellar year. They use him for pretty much everything. Nyheim Hines cuts into it a little bit on passing, but he still catches some balls too here and there. I like the addition of Matt Ryan for them as far as Pittman goes. I think Pittman's going to have a good year with Matt Ryan. As far as their tight ends go, I'm not a big fan of Mo Alley Cox, so I'm not going to be playing any tight ends on that side. On the Houston side, I do like Brandon Cooks. I think he's going to have a good year with Davis Mills. I don't necessarily like it in this matchup. The only way I would go in Houston would be Dameon Pierce, the rookie running back. I actually do like him a little bit. And he just got told that he's going to have the backfield. So I do like him. That's the way I'm leaning in that one.
Well, yeah, let's talk about Dameon Pierce for a second, because I did say in our subscriber chat that he is an easy fade. So obviously I disagree with you to some extent on Dameon Pierce. Obviously their rookie, he's going to be get the start for Houston. That's been apparent for a while. My problem with Pierce is, I think the Texans are going to fall behind in this game to the Colts. I think the Colts are going to control this game with Jonathan Taylor. And I could be wrong here. And if I am wrong, then Pierce is going to get there. But I don't think he's going to be the hurry up, passing down, third down back. I think that's still going to be Rex Burkhead, in which case, if I'm right about that, then you have Pierce as kind of the 2-down grinder in a game that I think they're going to be behind in. They're not projected to score many points. And so I get it with Pierce. What do you anticipate there, Locks, in terms of the workload? If it's the fourth quarter and Houston's down a couple scores, you think it's going to be Pierce or Burkhead out there?
Yeah, I'm with you in thinking that Burkhead will be out there.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping it's not a blowout, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I could see it going that way, but
yeah,
if it goes that way, I'm with you. I'd absolutely think that Burkhead's going to be out there for the passing downs and the hurry up and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's the reason for my fade. So I wanted to make sure that, you didn't have some information there that he's going to be out there as the full 3-down back, because he is going to get ownership. I think you're going to see Pierce come around at 10%. He's got a lot of hype in the preseason. He's the starter. He's cheap, right? I think I said my salary floor at running back 5,200 with Edmonds. I think a lot of people are going to go down to 4,800 with Pierce as their last guy, which I don't know. It's like anytime he's the lowest, that most people might go. I think he might get some ownership, right? Just kind of for that purpose. So that's the reason for the Pierce fade. We'll go to you, Snyder. I will say one of my favorite plays in this game is Brandon Cooks, who I think is going to go under the radar once again. I mean, this guy just performed time and time again. He showed a good rapport with Davis Mills, had 10 plus targets and over 100 yards, 10 plus targets in 3 of the last 4 games, over 100 yards in 2 of those games. Mills, I think, is a competent quarterback. I think Houston's going to be trailing in this game. I think they're going to have to air it out in the second half. And I kind of like that leverage pivot from, I think, a fairly high-owned Dameon Pierce, nothing crazy, to the Brandon Cooks. I just like the script better for him in a dome, right? It just, everything kind of points to a decent Brandon Cooks game here. I think he's got a nice floor and a nice ceiling, right? The dude's got some speed. He's a guy that on the fast track in Houston, he can break one loose on a slant over the middle. So I am in on Brandon Cooks. And then Michael Pittman, 5,500 for the Colts. I think he could be in for a big year, just a misprice there. What is he, like 7,200 on FanDuel? I think that's more where he should be. So Pittman, I think is a good option as well. Snyder, your thoughts here on the Colts and the Texans?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a game that we can attack from both sides. Brandon Cooks, I'm with you right there. FanDuel, he's 6'6". I think that's a great price tag over on FanDuel. Great. That's more of his type of play, too. He's going to catch some he's got a chance to catch a deep ball or something like that. So I definitely like Cooks over there. Good price tag. I think Michael Pittman probably will be the most popular guy on the whole slate from any position. Just way too cheap over on DraftKings. I mean, he'll be a plug and play and like your cash and single entries and stuff that many people will go to. I think Nico Collins is interesting at 4,200 for Houston. Davis Mills actually isn't that bad, 5,300. He had some games last year where he had over 300 yards passing, I think 3 or 4 or 5 times. So he's got the arm, and this is a home divisional game. I think the Texans could come out and kind of surprise some people here. I think they're definitely live here. I think Dameon Pierce is going to be more popular maybe on FanDuel. His price tag over there is 5,400, so that's pretty easy for people to kind of jam in there as that type of play. 4,800 isn't bad over on DraftKings. I think he'll be lower owned over on DraftKings, like maybe just under 15%, like maybe 12, 13% or something like that. I probably won't play him on DraftKings. I may play him over on FanDuel, though, if I'm looking to kind of go stars and scrubs with some other guys there. I'm going to be off of Jonathan Taylor this week. I definitely like the guy. I mean, he's an elite talent, but I think I'm rather going to go with like McCaffrey and some of those other guys I like at much lower ownership. I think Jonathan Taylor will be another one of those guys like 15 to 20% owned. And I'm going to be kind of all in on McCaffrey as we'll get there later. But off of Taylor, I definitely think Michael Pittman's a great – if you're going to play him, just try and get different elsewhere. I mean, I think he's going to be quite lower owned over on FanDuel too. So maybe just play him over on FanDuel. He's got more of a relative price tag for where he should be. I definitely like the Brandon Cooks call that you had there too. Not much for the tight ends for me either. I mean, Brevin Jordan's at 3,100. I think he's a solid cheapie if you want to spend down at tight end. He's got some upside there, but I think that's pretty much it for me on this game.
Yeah, that makes sense. Lox, what's your general approach on a player like Michael Pittman, who we do anticipate perhaps being the highest owned wide receiver on the entire slate? You said you're playing 150. What's Pittman going to be? 20, 25%, something like that. What's your approach to a player like that? Assuming you like Pittman, how do you approach a chalk wide receiver like him in the kind of that mid-range price tag?
Yeah, I do like him a little bit. His ownership is scaring me off of him, to be honest, a little bit, just because there's so many good wideouts in that mid-tier range, I think. That's why I'm kind of spending up at running back, because I think there's a lot in that mid-tier. So I wouldn't mind getting off of him a little bit. I'll probably be at the field or a little under, to be honest, on him, just because of the ownership. I see so many wide receivers out there this week that there's no need for me to get over the field on a 20 to 25% ownership wide receiver. Yeah,
that was going to kind of be my answer too. I think, if you're playing both tournaments and cash games, like one thing you can do is just, you play Michael Pittman in 100% of your cash games. Not everyone will do so. You can get some exposure that way. And then you can kind of, fade him a little bit in tournaments, which it seems like the right approach. That's one reason to play both cash and tournaments, is you can take advantage of those good plays in the cash games and then go differentiate yourself in tournaments and kind of hedge yourself that way. So that'll be kind of my approach. I'll be under the field on Pittman. He is obviously a good play. I'm playing him in cash almost certainly, but in tournaments, we don't know. I mean, it's a new quarterback. Pittman's a good player, but he hasn't really done it yet to justify the massive ownership that he's going to have.
I think he gets the quarterback upgrade though, for sure.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. Although I can't go too far on hitting on Carson Wentz, because he's the next game on the slate, and I do like Carson Wentz a little bit in this one, so I'll have to hold back. But it is Jacksonville and the Washington Commanders, new team name for Washington. That one's going to take a little time getting used to. I just gotten used to the football team. I've retired Redskins from the vernacular, got used to the football team, and now they're the Commanders. I think they should have stuck with the football team.
I agree.
I personally like that name, but that's neither here nor there. I will do my best to remember to call them by their proper name, the Commanders. They are 3-point home favorites here over the Jaguars. Total of 44, relatively low. This one, I think, has kind of a ton of unknowns. Obviously, Jacksonville got rid of the disaster that was Urban Meyer. I mean, Trevor Lawrence's talent hasn't gone anywhere. I think he's going to have a better sophomore campaign, no question about it. How good that will be, we shall see, but it seems hard to imagine that this team will be as dysfunctional as they were last year. So it'll be fun to see him play. New addition, Christian Kirk, another guy that I think I'm going to end up on cash games and in tournaments too. If you look at these other receivers for Jacksonville, right? Zay Jones on the outside, a relatively good deep threat, I suppose, but not by any means a high target guy. Then you got Marvin Jones, the other outside receiver, getting old. I don't think he's going to command a huge target share. Evan Ingram, I don't really think is all that great. Christian Kirk could be peppered with targets here, so he's interesting to me. And then, I mentioned I do like Carson Wentz a little bit for tournaments. One reason, for one, he's cheap. Last year, the Colts, they didn't need him to do too much, right? Jonathan Taylor was just running over every team with that offensive line. They were ahead in most games. But I still think Wentz, I don't think he's a great quarterback. I kind of throw him in the Jameis Winston pool, where he can put up big numbers from time to time. He's still got a lot of arm talent. He can run a little bit. And I think he will have some big games for the Commanders. I talked about Christian Kirk on the Jacksonville side. Washington is another team. I think they've got a very clear three-man wide receiver group that's going to get the targets. Of course, you've got Terry McLaurin, who, is as talented as anybody. He can have a big game anytime. I actually like the pairing with Wentz, who will throw the ball downfield. He'll throw into coverage. You like that for a wide receiver like McLaurin. But they've got a couple of interesting guys, new guys as well. One, Jahan Dotson, their rookie wide receiver that they picked high in the draft. He's had an impressive preseason. All camp reports have been strong on him. He's 3,400, going to be a starting wide receiver. I mean, I think he could easily get 8+ targets in this one. So I do like Dotson. And then my truly off the board play here, Locks, is Curtis Samuel, who is going to be, I think, sub 1% owned. Listen, it wasn't that long ago. Samuel was putting up some pretty big numbers for the Carolina Panthers. The same regime that now coaches the Commanders, the Ron Rivera-led regime, signed him in free agency. Pretty big deal. I think $30+ million, 3-year deal. Last year, just a lost season for Samuel, never got healthy, but he's healthy now. And everything I'm reading, the coach speak, he's going to be involved. I think even manufactured touches, maybe a couple carries. I don't really see any reason why Samuel can't have a decent year, good year for Washington if he can stay healthy. I think he's going to be on the field a ton. He's going way overlooked. He's cheap. So the reason I like Wentz is his weapons are cheap, right? Samuel and Dotson, I think, are going to be heavily involved in this offense. They obviously lost Brian Robinson to a shooting. It's going to be Antonio Gibson who gets the start, but it doesn't really seem like they like Gibson, right? The rookie kind of took over. Gibson's got the fumbling issues. They do have McKissick as that third down back. He'll be targeted, but I don't know. I could see Wentz airing it out 40 plus times here. And I think I know where most of those targets are going to go. It's to the three wide receivers, McLaurin, Samuel, and Dotson, two of whom are very, very cheap and low owned. So I'm just seeing from a million maker perspective, if Wentz can have a big game, he could bring one or two of those cheap guys with him for very cheap prices, allows you to, you could spend up on three big running backs if you wanted to. So hate to be talking myself into Carson Wentz on week one, but hey, if you want to do, some sort of wager here, I'll take him over your man, Joe Flacco, Lox.
I was just going to say, man, you're going to talk me into Wentz when I don't want to play him.
Yeah. Well, you got to play at least one Wentz now if I'm playing.
Yeah, I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to throw Wentz in there. You definitely made a good case for it. I mean, I agree with you on the wide receivers. Samuel, like you said, he never got healthy. And when he is healthy, he's actually a decent wideout. And with his ownership, why not? McLaurin's just a stud. So, yeah, I definitely like your take on Wentz. You definitely talked me into it because I wasn't leaning that way at all. The weather kind of looks iffy for me on that one. I don't know if I'm seeing that right. Possible rain.
I hadn't dove into the weather yet, to be honest. So if it's that would actually benefit. If the weather looks bad, windy would be the main concern, I assume. That would kind of take McLaurin or lower McLaurin and raise Dotson and Samuel. Both of those guys I expect to work closer to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, for sure. So I like them. Like you said, they almost seem like they're trying to phase out Gibson, but who knows? That backfield's a mess. I'm not going to play anybody in that backfield. On the Jaguars side, I'm pretty much with you. The only guy I like on that side is Christian Kirk. I actually think he's going to have a really solid year with Lawrence throwing him the ball. They got really nobody else to throw to. Marvin Jones is old. Evan Ingram hasn't shown us that he's good. And I really, like you said, I think he's going to get peppered with targets upon targets every week. So I like Christian Kirk. Maybe running it back, Carson Wentz, McLaurin, Samuel with a Christian Kirk on the other side. Who knows? Something like that.
Yeah, makes sense. The Wentz double stack. I'll have a few Wentz double stacks.
I can't believe you made me say that.
Yeah, I won't use the rent money on those ones. The rent money teams will go to Patrick Mahomes, not Carson Wentz. Snyder, your thoughts here on Jacksonville and in Washington?
Yeah, I think this is kind of one of those sneaky games that could kind of shoot out. I wouldn't surprise me if this game was like 24-28 when we're looking back at this game in the afternoon. I think this is it's an interesting spot here. I definitely do agree. I think Jahan Dotson is a great value play, 3,400. I think he's one of those rookies that's kind of going to take that leap this year. So I'm going to be on a Jahan Dotson quite a bit for 3,400. I think that's a great price tag. Christian Kirk, I think he's a solid guy. He'll be probably right around 15% owned, but I do like him coming to this situation. I mean, I think he's going to be a pretty good upgrade with his quarterback here. So I actually do like Antonio Gibson a little bit this week. I mean, I was off of him. I was fading him in best balls and season longs. Me and Simon were talking about fading him all preseason, but then he comes in, he kind of gets put right back into the role. He was one of only 7 guys that had over 1,000 yards rushing last year. Ron Rivera came out, I think earlier this week and says, we trust Gibson now. We're going to give him the ball. I think that he's going to see like 20 carries in this game. So I actually do like a Gibson I think he's going to be like 10% or lower. So I think he's kind of a contrarian running back that I like this week in some large field contests. I'm going to be on Dotson, Kirk, Gibson. I don't mind doing some Trevor Lawrence or Wentz stacks. I mean, they're both priced right there in the mid 5K range. I mean, that's very good price tags from. I don't think I'm going to get the Evan Ingram, but I could see maybe some people going down there for another cheap yet tight end, 3,500. But I just kind of quit playing him a couple of years ago. He's just kind of been dusty the last couple of years. I actually like Dotson more than McLaurin this week. Marvin Jones is an interesting guy right there. He was kind of like Trevor Lawrence is kind of go-to guy there down the stretch. He had 8 targets, 6 targets, 13 targets, I believe, in his last 3 games last year. So I think he's interesting there. I think this is a kind of an interesting game that could kind of shoot out 24-28 type game or something. So I'm going to have some interest in these guys.
Yeah, it feels dirty, but I think this game, I see no reason why this game couldn't be one of those dirty shootouts that people don't see coming. We've seen Wentz involved in a lot of those, not so much with the Colts, but you can kind of explain why that is. They had a dominant running back. They didn't need to lean on Wentz. In this one, I think these teams could air it out. Hopefully the weather holds up decently enough. And yeah, we'll maybe see a shootout between the Jaguars and the Commanders. Let's move on to the next game, the San Francisco 49ers, Chicago Bears. I believe the lowest total on the slate, sitting right at 40 at the moment. It is the 49ers, 6.5 point favorites. I came into this season hoping to be very high on Mr. Trey Lance, obviously taking over the reins for the San Francisco 49ers. 2 weeks ago, if you asked me, I would have said he would be my highest owned quarterback for week 1. I'm wavering, Snyder. I'm wavering on Trey Lance. The re-signing of Jimmy Garoppolo instead of trading him or cutting him, it doesn't affect Trey Lance if he plays well, but it just makes me a little concerned that the 49ers are concerned about Trey Lance's ability to get the job done. He's got huge rushing upside. I think he had in his 2 starts. He could get 15, 20 carries in this game. I think that's possible. It's a great matchup against the Bears. He's relatively cheap, $6K on DraftKings. So I will still have exposure to Trey Lance. There's also a thing he wasn't named a captain, which is rare for a QB. I'm just a little concerned that, I don't know. I don't want to have a big exposure to a quarterback that gets benched at halftime on week 1 when there's all these options. But, we don't want to play scared in the Millie Maker. Like, you're going for first place out of, over what is there, like over a million teams in the $5 Millie Maker on DraftKings?
Yep.
Obviously, you're shooting for the moon. If he gets benched at halftime, you weren't winning with him anyway. So it's kind of whatever, I guess. But I'm a little nervous on Trey Lance. We do know, is George Kittle ruled out? I think he's still questionable, but not. I would be surprised if he played in this game.
I think he's out.
Yeah,
I thought he was pretty much out.
They should do a couple things. It should condense the target share for Trey Lance, bringing, I think, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk more into play. Could potentially also reduce the effectiveness of the San Francisco running game, perhaps relying, making the reliance on Trey Lance to throw the ball through the air more viable for San Francisco. So I'm going to stick with some Trey Lance, but I'm a little nervous about it, to be honest. The Chicago side of this game, Snyder, the one guy I'm looking at, I do like him a lot, is Darnell Mooney, who just got a ton of targets last year, has a good rapport with Justin Fields. I'm not going to a guy personally like Montgomery or Elijah Mitchell. I guess you could make a case for, perhaps. But yeah, talk to me about San Francisco and Chicago.
I really don't have much interest in this game at all. I think I'm going to be pretty much fading this game, except for I don't mind playing an Elijah Mitchell with a 49ers defensive stack. I'm kind of looking to fade the Bears a lot. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year. So I'm going to be looking to attack them with the defenses and fade them pretty much this whole year. I think Elijah Mitchell is the guy with Kittle being out. I think they're going to give the ball to Mitchell. Like we saw last year, he had 20 to 25 carries in a ton of games last year. I think we see a lot of that. I think they're going to try and keep Trey Lance out of harm's way. They're going to just kind of get in and get out with the win here. I think it should be a pretty easy win for them. So, yeah, the Bears have a 17-point in play team total, so I'll be off of that. And then it's just Mitchell and the 49ers defense with me for this game. I think there's just way too many better spots this week to target. They'll kind of force in a game at Soldier Field with 2 slower teams, I think.
Who's the Bears wide receiver 2, Snyder?
Man,
there's because they don't have one. That's my whole point.
St. Brown, it's got to be this Aquinius St. Brown, I think. That's got to be the number
He
2.
couldn't do anything.
Or Pringle.
Byron Pringle and St. Brown, who neither of those guys could do a damn thing with Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes as their quarterback for years. That's why I'm high on Darnell Mooney. I mean, I think this guy's just going to get peppered with targets. I think the Bears are going to be trailing. I think his ownership is down just because of the Bears' low team total. But I mean, guess who had a low team total every single game last year too? The Chicago Bears. And Mooney, 13 targets in his last 2 games. Montgomery, rather. I always get Singletary and Montgomery mixed up. Not really a dynamic pass catcher. They've got Cole Kmet there, who is a semi-talented dude, but has never really commanded that many targets. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see Darnell Mooney lead the entire NFL in targets in week 1. Frankly, lead the entire NFL in targets for the whole year wouldn't shock me. It sounds like a crazy thing to say, but he had 3 games last year. I think he had 2 with 16 targets and 1 with 13. He had some monster target games. Those were with Justin Fields. He's a talented dude, and they don't have anybody else. They're going to be trailing. And I mean, David Montgomery is an okay player, but you're not handing off to David Montgomery if you're trailing in the game. That's just not going to get the job done. He's not an explosive guy. So if I'm just assigning target shares, Darnell Mooney's got to be way up there. And Herbert's strength is throwing the deep ball. So I think Mooney's going to get a ton of targets. He's got upside that way, and he's got upside to get behind the defense and catch one. So I'm very high on Darnell Mooney in this game. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't see why he can't. Man, I would be surprised if he doesn't get 10 targets in this game, to be honest. So one of my favorite players on this slate. He's the only guy, though, from Chicago that I'm even really remotely interested in. Lox, let's throw it to you. What do you see, San Francisco, Chicago?
I see a whole lot of nothing, to be honest with you. I'm not really on this game at all. I don't mind actually both defenses. To be honest, the Bears D at 2,200 kind of intrigues me just to get a few more players in, just because I think it's going to be a low total, and Trey Lance could turn.
Who knows? Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, give me the 2,200 defense against a quarterback that I'm worried might be benched at halftime. That makes some sense to me, right?
For sure. And I'm looking at the Bears side. I agree with you on Mooney. I think he's going to be he's going to get just loaded with targets all year. But I look at Cole Kmet. I actually think at tight end, he's going to have a decent year, just because, like you said, there's nobody else to throw to. So if Mooney isn't getting the targets, I think it's actually going to Cole Kmet. So he's one of the cheap tight ends. If you want to spend down at tight end, I'm probably not playing him too much. Obviously, if I'm playing 150, I'll sprinkle him in a little bit. But I like Cole Kmet here just because he's got to throw to somebody else other than Mooney. And I don't see anyone else other than Kmet that's going to go to.
Any interest in Justin Fields? It sounds like not. That was kind of my intention too. But the Bears were a disaster last year, right? And Fields has what do they say? Konami code, the running quarterbacks. He is that. He is explosive with the legs. 5,600 maybe. Cole Kmet. Justin Fields. And then, I do like the quarterbacks, the cheap quarterbacks that exactly who to target them with, right? If Justin Fields goes off, he's probably bringing Darnell Mooney and maybe Cole Kmet with him. So I could make a case for that. Any interest there, Lox or Snyder, in Justin Fields?
I personally don't in Justin Fields. If I do play either Mooney or Kmet, you got to have him in there a little bit just because, like you just mentioned, he's got no one else to throw to. You know who he's throwing to, so it's pretty easy to pick who he's stacking with. The other side, Trey Lance, I don't have any. I'm not going to play him this week.
Yeah, you're smarter than me.
I think the Kmet call is a pretty sharp call. 3,700. He's got to throw it to someone, like you're saying. So I think he could be a solid cheapie down there under 4K for a tight end. I could get on board with that.
Yeah, he does make some sense. And Fields, he does have upside at 5,600. You can argue how often does he reach that upside, I think is very much up for debate. but I don't think you can argue that the upside isn't there when he's a guy that can run. He can bust any quarterback that can run one in from 30, 40 yards out, right? You get one of those plays and you're off to the races, especially at that price point. So kind of rethinking my position on Fields, I'll probably have at least a little bit of exposure to him. Speaking of exposure, let's go to the next game on the slate. Cleveland Browns, Carolina Panthers. We don't have Deshaun Watson in there quite yet. We're going to have to wait a few weeks. Man, couldn't even get a laugh out of you on the exposure joke with Deshaun Watson. Tough crowd over here. Hopefully some of the viewers got my lame joke. But it will be Jacoby Brissett behind center for Cleveland until Mr. Watson can return. Baker Mayfield obviously traded from the Browns to the Panthers. Going to start the revenge narrative. Snyder, it's strong in this one for Baker Mayfield. We'll see the return of the recently off-injured Christian McCaffrey, 8,500 on DraftKings. My RB1 on this slate. It's easy to forget, I think, how good Christian McCaffrey is when he plays. Just an absolute monster. And I think Baker Mayfield and McCaffrey is kind of like a perfect combination for McCaffrey, where I think Baker Mayfield will be happy to accurately deliver the ball to him time and time again in the passing game. So very, very high on McCaffrey. The other Carolina guy that I'm personally looking at is DJ Moore. Again, I think Baker Mayfield, for all his faults, played injured last year. I think he's better than he showed last year. He can deliver the ball accurately, I think, in the areas where guys like DJ Moore and McCaffrey get their reception. So I'm fairly high on, especially McCaffrey, to some extent more. Cleveland side, you can always make a case for Nick Chubb. He's not the type of back I like to play a ton, doesn't do a lot in the passing game, and then also has to split carries with Kareem Hunt. So I always find myself lower than the field on Nick Chubb, but this is a good matchup for him. And there's no question he could go off here. I think this is another one where the offensive line for Cleveland should be able to dominate that Carolina defensive line. If that's the case, you could see a monster game for Chubb. We'll throw it to you first, Lox. What do you see, Cleveland, Carolina? I'm pretty low on this game other than McCaffrey and a little bit of DJ Moore as well.
Yeah, I see this game's pretty easy for me. McCaffrey is definitely probably my highest owned guy. If not my highest owned, definitely one of my top 3 highest owned guys. Like I said, I'm paying up at running back, him, Jonathan Taylor. I like those top 2 guys, and then I'll sprinkle in a few other top tier running backs. But McCaffrey is definitely my highest owned guy. I don't like either quarterback in this matchup. Possibly Chubb on the other side, like you said, but overall, I'm not on this game pretty much at all. So I don't really have anything else other than McCaffrey.
Yeah, we're already running late. The show is going overtime today. So I appreciate the quick and concise breakdown there, Lox. Let's go to you, Snyder. Don't talk too much.
Yeah, definitely. I'm arm in arm with you. I think McCaffrey is the best play on the whole slate. I think he's $2K too cheap this week, 8,500 elite price tag. And then I love DJ Moore as well, going with the passing game there. Over the last 6 games last year, he averaged, I think, double-digit targets, and he gets a pretty sizable QB upgrade here. So I definitely like DJ Moore, especially over on FanDuel. He's only 6,400 over on FanDuel, and that really sets up well with his game type too. So definitely going to be overweight on those 2 guys. I think that's pretty much it for me. No tight ends. Njoku's 3,900. Probably won't get there though. Not going to play the running backs for Cleveland either. So just McCaffrey and DJ Moore for me.
Yeah, JRF asked in the Discord chat, if you have interest in McCaffrey and DJ Moore, you have interest in Baker. I would say no. I won't play. I'll have exposure to both McCaffrey and DJ Moore, but not on the same team. And I'm not going to play any Baker Mayfield. Would way rather play a guy even like Justin Fields from the last game. I like Carson Wentz more, so I'm not going to Baker. And I wouldn't play personally McCaffrey and DJ Moore on the same team. They're just too expensive, and they kind of eat into each other's production, right? They both need a bunch of receptions to get there. It could happen. I just think it's not the optimal way to go on this slate. Next game on the slate, Minnesota Vikings and Green Bay Packers. My second team. Chiefs are my first team now. They've taken over from the Vikings, but I'm from Minnesota, so I do root for them in general. This one expected to be close. Packers 1-point favorites on the road, which is ridiculous, by the way. Vikings going to win this game, but it is a 46.5 total. You've got, of course, Justin Jefferson, just an absolute beast. Vikings with the coaching change, Mike Zimmer out. They've got the Rams former assistant coach coming in, and it's week one. We don't know for sure, but we know Jefferson's awesome anyway. And I think we're going to see Jefferson in more of a Cooper Kupp-esque role. If he is going to be just an absolute, he will be anyway. He's going to be a monster regardless, but I could see even a potential step forward for Justin Jefferson. He was the guy in best balls that I was taking number one overall ahead of McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, and Cooper Kupp himself. After that first game for Cooper Kupp, we'll see. It was kicking myself a little bit when Kupp was going off, but just one game. Jefferson, I think, can match him. Jefferson is my wide receiver one on this slate. And yeah, I think the Vikings have a couple. The whole team is kind of interesting. I mean, Dalvin Cook going to do his thing. I think you'll get him a little bit lower owned. He's getting up there a little bit in age, but for now, it's still going to be the clear lead back. Adam Thielen is cheap. Again, another guy a little bit long in the tooth. I like him probably more over on FanDuel because you're looking for a couple touchdowns, right? But Thielen absolutely has a nose for the end zone, could get you 2 touchdowns at 6,100 and get close to, or on the optimal. And then on the Packers side, man, their wide receiver room is looking grim. Obviously traded Devontae Adams, I think, to the Raiders. It was expected that Allen Lazard was going to step in as the wide receiver one. Maybe he still will down the road, but not going to play in this game, or most likely anyway, doubtful to play. Very much in question who's going to be the wide receiver one for the Packers in this game. There's been a lot of chatter in the Twitter streets about Sammy Watkins, who has had, I think, 3 big week ones in a row, including that. I remember it well, the epic 3 touchdown game for the Chiefs a couple of years ago. I was all in on Mahomes that game and had very little Sammy Watkins. It was a especially painful way to start the season for yours truly over here. But yeah, Watkins, I think, is interesting. 4,700. I just don't know where else they are necessarily going to go. Maybe Big Bob Tonyan, you could play. Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon, both going to be involved, which, you know, I have trouble on these big slates going to running backs that are kind of splitting the workload, but I could see making the case for either of those guys. But I'm more on the Minnesota side of this game. You know, I'm not going to play Jefferson and Cook together, but picking one or the other, I think, is a good way to go. Lox, we'll start with you. Green Bay, Minnesota. What do you see?
I'm kind of against you on Jefferson, to be honest. I just think Green Bay's defense is solid.
It's not going to matter, man. Nobody can cover Jefferson.
I'm not saying I'm off of him. I'm not as high on him as you are.
Yeah, I will say I won't have as much as I would like because I'm mostly spending at running back, right? So it's kind of hard to get him in, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at with it. I'm more in this mid-tier for wide receiver just because I'm spending so much at running back. So I'm a little bit under the field on Jefferson. Obviously, I do think he's a great player. He's one of the top 3 guys at wideout. I might even go to Thielen, though, at a 2.4 discount on DK. He seems like a solid option. He loves him in the red zone, so I may lean that way, possibly if I go there. And I do actually like Irv Smith in the red zone for them. On the Green Bay side, yeah, Watkins is the week 1 hero, so I might throw him in a little bit to save some salary at wide receiver. And then
it feels foolish playing him to me. It does.
A little
Any
bit.
Randall Cobb?
No, we're not playing Randall Cobb.
I played Dobbs way before Cobb. I actually don't mind Dobbs. I think he might have a decent year. He's looked solid in the preseason, but I'm not going to play him. Maybe I sprinkle in a little bit of him. He's 3K stone minimum, so why not throw a dart throw? Aaron Rodgers is a good quarterback. But Green Bay side, I really think it's going to be the Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon show in this one.
The chat's roasting Sammy Watkins. We'll see. I'll have some exposure to him, but I'm not going overboard on the Sammy Watkins play. When I lose week one,
Agreed.
I don't want it to be because of Sammy freaking Watkins. So maybe he'll burn me once again. Snyder, your thoughts? Green Bay, Minnesota.
Yeah, I think this game is interesting. I think we could see some fireworks here. I have some conviction on both sides of this. Green Bay, I definitely do think both the running backs going to have huge roles in this game. I think wouldn't surprise me if Aaron Jones caught 7, 8, 9 passes in this game even. I think A.J. Dillon's going to be like the goal line back. I have some conviction on A.J. Dillon over on FanDuel. He's only 6,100 over there. I think he's a guy that could maybe get into the end zone a couple times. I think he's going to have probably at least 35-40% of the work here. I think they're going to maybe roll out Aaron Jones into the receiver formation some. Not really high on any of these Packers receivers. Dubs is kind of getting some steam there. He's 3K. Stone Min, I think it'll be like 11% owned, 12, 13% owned maybe. You got Randall Cobb there. Some people are talking Cobb up. I'm not going to be playing him though. 3,400. If he approaches like 10%, no way for me. I do like the Sammy Watkins call, though. I don't mind playing him early in the season before he gets hurt and whatnot. So probably have a little bit of Watkins with me there. And the thing that worries me the most with Jefferson is he'll probably be lining up against Jair Alexander for most of the match, but it really didn't matter last year. He still had some pretty good games on him. That one game, he had 8 catches for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Packers. So I'm not really too worried about Jefferson. I think he's one of those elite receivers. He's debatably one of the best receivers, top 3 for sure. It's Kupp, Jefferson, and Chase, I think, up there at the top. So he's definitely got that upside. I like the Irv Smith call, 3,400, great price point for him. Red zone guy. I do think like Thielen's a guy that he might not have the explosive stat line, but he's a guy that could catch a couple touchdowns. I think he looks for him in the red zone quite often. So definitely like both of the running backs of the Packers, and then and Dalvin Cook there. I mean, if you want to play him in some tournaments, he'll probably be like 5% owned. He's got that upside, so don't mind that. But I think Jefferson, Irv Smith, and the 2 Packers running backs would be the guys I'm highest on in this game.
Yeah, I'll conclude with this on this game. If you're lower on Justin Jefferson due to roster construction, even the pace of this game is a little concerning to me. I think the Packers are going to try to slow things down, play slower. They did it last year, and given their wide receiver core on the road, I think they're going to be one of the slower teams in the league. So you could fade Jefferson for that reason. Don't do it because of the individual matchup with Jair Alexander. They're going to move him all over the formation. They're going to get him in motion. They're going to use him like Cooper Kupp. Even if he had to go straight up 1v1 against Alexander every single snap, which you won't, I still think, given the rules in today's NFL, nobody can cover Justin Jefferson, just an absolute technician. So I'll say that about Jefferson. He's going to have a big game here. Just a matter of roster construction. The reason I'll have a little bit less of him than I otherwise would have liked to. Move it along to the next game on the slate, the New York Giants and the Tennessee Titans. Titans pretty decent favorites here. I think they are 5.5 point favorites now over the Giants, 44 total. I think, Snyder, we're going to see Saquon Barkley perhaps come in as the highest owned running back on the slate. He's another guy. He will be in my cash game lineup at 6,100 on DraftKings, 6,800 on FanDuel. Just way too cheap for a guy who we project for not 100%, but I mean, as close to 100% of the workload as anyone is going to get outside of perhaps Christian McCaffrey. Kind of a tough matchup for him, and I don't actually have that much faith in the Giants offense in general here, but just too cheap for Barkley, second year back from that ACL tear. I think he's going to have a good year starting week 1. So I'm in on him. The Giants receivers, kind of a lot of question marks there. Kenny Golladay, has had about as negative reports out of training camp as any wide receiver in the league. Kadarius Toney has missed time, personal reasons. He just never seems to be quite healthy. He's still interesting at 4,100. You've got Sterling Shepard coming off. Was it an Achilles for him? Yeah. And we saw, he didn't play in the preseason. He didn't practice much. He's apparently good to go, but so was Cam Akers. And then he played 3 plays in the entire game. So I've got like questions on Sterling Shepard. Suffice it to say, Shepard, Galladay, Tony, all these guys, negative reports, missed camp. I'm a little bit interested in Wan'Dale Robinson, their rookie wide receiver. He's minimum price $3K on DraftKings locks. You think he's going to start and play almost every snap. I mean, there's no way Shepard's going to be out there every snap. Galladay's been terrible. Tony, another guy that I don't think is a 100% snap share guy. So Robinson is the guy that I'm looking at from the Giants, on teams that maybe I want to go away from Saquon. And then on the other side of the ball, King Henry, man, I think people forget what King Henry was doing, Derrick Henry was doing before he went down week 8. He's another guy in my 10 under 10 article. I do have him projected right around 10%. His touches before he got hurt in that week 8 were just insane. I think he averaged like 28 touches a game over the first 7 weeks. Just totally absurd. One of those guys who's a monster at the goal line, but can also bust an 80-yard touchdown run at any point. And I'm seeing him, right around 10% on both sides. That's Derrick Henry, one of my favorite running back plays on the slate. And he's not I always shy away from him, right? Everybody wants to pass catching running backs and all that. I get it, but man, Titans favorites in this game. We know what the game plan is for the Tennessee Titans. It's not changing. It's put the ball in Derrick Henry's belly, let him do his thing, do the play action right with Robert Woods on the outside. But if they get a chance, they'll give Derrick Henry 30 carries and let him go to work, get the 100-yard bonus, maybe a couple touchdowns locked. So I'm very high on Derrick Henry this week. Interested to hear your thoughts on him and the rest of this game.
Yeah, I'll keep it pretty quick with this game. I don't honestly have a whole lot of interest outside the running backs. Barkley, obviously, like you said, is more of a cash play, but for a good reason. He's going to be a stud, and then Henry is always a beast. I can't believe that he's coming in that low owned. So, yeah, I'm going to have over the field on him, I think. Just an absolute stud. Like you said, he's a goal line back, but he can also bust it for 80, 90 yards too. So he's got it all. I don't see how he's going that overlooked. 10 or 11% to me is low for him on this slate. So I'm going to be over the field on him. Other than that, not much interest in this game.
Yeah, makes sense. Mostly running backs here for me as well. I do like Robert Woods a little bit. Probably more of a DraftKings play because you're trying to hope to rack up the receptions there and get the 100-yard bonus perhaps, but it's hard to know for sure that the volume will be there. Snyder, your thoughts here, Giants and Titans?
Yeah, I definitely think there's some interesting spots here. Saquon Barkley, definitely going to be on him for sure in cash in some tournaments as well. I think he's going to get kind of the slightly similar workload to CMC, not to the extent, but pretty close. So I think he'll see like at least 5 targets in this game, probably 15 or so, 15 to 17 carries and such. I definitely think he's got that upside still. And then Kadarius Toney's interesting at 4,100. He had that game last year early in the season. I played the Cowboys, racked up like 30 points, I think it was, off 10 targets, 10 catches that game. So I think he's interesting. Wan'Dale Robinson, 3K. I think he's kind of going to be one of those guys some people gravitate to. He'll have some ownership. Kind of a lower ADOT guy, but if he gets in space, he can definitely turn on the Jets and make some big plays and such. So probably have him some in player pool. Not going to be on Bobby Woods or Sterling Shepard or Kenny Galladay. Treylon Burks is interesting. I think he's going to come at like basically no ownership. Upside rookie guy. I don't know if I'll get to him though. 5K just seems a little too expensive. Definitely like a King Henry, though. I'm going to actually play King Henry over Jonathan Taylor. I think he's going to come in much lower owned. I like the setup here. It's a good game script, I think, for him. I think they're going to be ahead here. So I'm going to be quite heavy on King Henry there. I don't think Daniel Jones is not a bad play, though. 5K if you want to play him with like a Kadarius Toney or Wan'Dale or something. I think that's definitely interesting. Daniel Bellinger, the rookie tight end, is going to be starting at 2,500. I think that's another cheapie that's interesting if you want to go there. I don't think anyone's going to really go down there. He'll probably be, 1 to 3% owned or something like that. So I think he's interesting, but definitely I like both the running backs. I won't play them together most likely, but I definitely like both of that.
Yeah, I'm going to separate those 2 running backs. You could play them together. Saquon can get there with targets, but I do prefer to separate them. I'm with you on that, Snyder. So We'll move on from the Giants and the Titans. Next game on the slate, one with a high total. I expect this game to be relatively popular. 52.5 total, I think. Is this the highest? Yeah, tied with the Chiefs and Chargers, which we'll talk about next. Chiefs and not the Diamondbacks, doing a little bit of baseball mode. The Arizona Cardinals, but yeah, Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders. 52.5 total. Chargers favored by 3.5. Snyder, will stick with you here. What do you see between these two teams?
Yeah, I was very high on this division as a whole in the best balls and the season longs and all that. I'm definitely going to target these games quite often here. I love Derek Carr, love his price tag. Devontae Adams is another one of those elite receivers that's up there with those other three with Chase Cooper and Jefferson. I think he could have a little of coming out party here on his first game there. Mike Williams, the price tag's too cheap, especially over on FanDuel. I think he's a great play over on FanDuel. I like Justin Herbert a lot. He was one of my the main guys I was drafting early on this year, so I'm going to be going right back to Herbert. I think the Chargers are my pick to win this division this year. I think they're going to really take that step forward. The defense is a lot better this year too. They brought in a lot of key guys there, but I'm going to be off of the running backs here, except for Austin Eckler. I think Austin Eckler is kind of a guy. He's priced up at 8,200. I think he's going to kind of fall between the cracks. So I definitely think he's interesting for tournaments, but I'm going to be off of. I'm not going to play Josh Jacobs or any of those guys from the Raiders. Devontae Adams, Mike Williams are my top two plays. Joshua Palmer's an upside guy. He's 3,800. Yeah, I think he's a guy that can catch a bomb, like the wide receiver 3 here. I think he'll be like 1% owned. So if you want to play him in a Herbert double or something with Williams, I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm on board with Devontae Adams. I think he might go a little bit overlooked. New quarterback, expensive, right? We want to spend up a running back. I do have him below Justin Jefferson, but man, I think Adams and Carr are gonna have maybe not the symbiotic relationship that Rodgers and Adams had, but Adams, I think the talent is very real on Adams. I'm expecting a big year. I think he's going to score touchdowns. What an obvious run back, right? If you're going to Herbert teams, if you're going Herbert and Allen or Herbert and Mike Williams or Josh Palmer, like you mentioned, Snyder, I think he's an interesting below 4K wide receiver, going to be the third clear option. He's talented. He's got Justin Herbert throwing in the ball. And Keenan Allen, I think I'm going to be lower, I think, on Keenan Allen a lot of this year. Just getting older, he was never that explosive of a player, and that what little explosiveness he had is kind of going away. So still an awesome real life player, but maybe not the fantasy upside that I'm looking for at that price point with Keenan Allen. Let's go to you, Lox. What do you see here between Vegas and LA?
I see a lot here just because I think a lot of the ownership is going to go towards that last game, the Chiefs and Cardinals. So I think this is actually going to be one of the higher scoring, lower ownership games. It's not going to be low owned, but obviously the higher totals. I think this is going to be a way you can get different from that Chiefs game. I like Carr with Adams. I think they're going to have a special relationship together. I'm from Wisconsin, so I know how good Adams is because I'm a Packers fan. Rodgers made him better, but he is a stud. Carr's going to throw to him all the time. They're going to have a good relationship. I think he's going to have a stellar year again.
Yep.
And like you said, he's not going to be as high owned as probably he honestly should be. He's just a beast. And then I like Waller on that side as well. Carr loves Waller. Waller's just a stud at tight end. And he's only 5.4, so he's not up there with the Kelce's and the Andrews. So a little bit cheaper of a stud tight end as well. On the other side, I like all kinds of stuff. I like Herbert with Mike Williams and Josh Palmer. I'm also with you guys on under the field on Keenan Allen. I will be probably under him a lot. I just like Mike Williams a little bit more. And then Eckler's just a stud at running back too, at 8.2K. Not a terrible price tag, maybe a tiny bit steep, but well-deserved with him as well.
Yeah, I think, Eckler, I think, is a really fun play. I'm probably only playing, you could double stack Herbert with Williams and Palmer would be the way I would go. But other than that, I'm not going to play Williams and Eckler together. I think Eckler is sneaky, though. Seems like he's flying under the radar a little bit. And the Raiders have a really, really good pass rush on the edge with Max, what's his name? Max Crosby. And they got a new signing in there as well, Chandler Jones. But they're pretty weak in the interior and at linebacker. And I think Eckler could toast this team. Kind of a leverage play too, right? Because you are going to see people on Herbert. You're going to see people on Mike Williams, Keenan Allen to some extent. If it's Eckler that does the damage, he could kind of hurt a lot of teams in this game while helping yours. So I always, that's something I'm looking to get into in tournaments. So I do like Eckler quite a bit. Mike Williams on FanDuel in particular, 6,600. I think he's a tremendous play over there. A guy that can catch 2 long touchdown passes and get his way onto the winning teams on FanDuel. So do pay special attention to Williams on FanDuel. That's where I'll have most of my exposure to him. All right, last game on the slate.
DC, should we give away that ticket before this last game?
Yeah, let's do it. I've got the winner.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Snyder.
I said awesome. Yeah, pick a winner.
Yeah, I always feel bad on these because I wish I could give tickets for all the great comments in chat. Fortunately, we've only got one to give away. I'm sure we'll give away more throughout the season, but I did choose Kenny Good People, longtime member of RPS, in all the Discord chats, had several comments that made me laugh during the show. So Kenny Good People, I will DM you on Discord, and we'll get that 333 ticket your way. Hopefully you can ship something big tomorrow. Again, Kenny Good People, I will DM you on chat and we'll get that squared away. All right, let's get to the last game of the day. Like we said, KC, Arizona, perhaps going to be the most popular game on this slate. It's going to certainly be right up there these last couple of games. Frankly, the afternoon games, I think we're going to see a lot of exposure to in general. Of course, it's Patrick Mahomes versus Kyler Murray. We know those are two of the most highest upside popular quarterbacks in general. That's going to be true, I think, on this slate as well. Moving parts, though, for both of these teams. It's the Chiefs, obviously, no Tyreek Hill. They still got Kelsey. And then, a bunch of guys that it's almost like misfits on the KC side for wide receivers, right? Juju Smith-Schuster coming over from Pittsburgh. We've got Valdez-Scantling coming over from the Packers. McCole Hardman has not really been able to claim a big target share or role in that offense. Still an explosive player that can score a long touchdown, but you worry about the volume. Sky Moore, their rookie, again, I think he's sort of like a Hardman type clone, at least from what I'm seeing and reading initially. Going to be involved, but I don't know how many targets he's necessarily going to get. I love Mahomes. I'll have plenty of Mahomes, but picking between these guys is relatively tough for me. I think Schuster is my favorite, but I also think that's going to be reflected in ownership, and I just don't know who it's going to be. My lean initially is to pair Mahomes mostly with Travis Kelce. That's going to be kind of the chalk way to go, but I mean, I just think Kelsey's going to get peppered with targets, especially early on in the season when he's feeling good. I'm not buying the demise that some have predicted for the aging Travis Kelce. Had a monster playoff run. I'm in on Kelsey once again this year. And then the Arizona side, Locks, we'll start with you. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins suspended for the first 6 games. Rondale Moore, who I wanted to play as a run back in this game, hurt his hamstring like the last day of practice. He is already ruled out. And it gets pretty thin beyond that. You've got Hollywood Brown traded over from the Ravens. He's got clear upside. We'll have some exposure to him at 6,200. I do have a little bit concern about the target volume, but clearly a high upside play. You've got old man AJ Green. I don't think I'm personally going there. I just maybe he gets 7 or 8 targets, but how much upside does AJ Green really have left in the tank? I don't think very much. And then beyond that, you've got Greg Dortch, Andy Isabella, who I used to like, but I'm hesitant to go there in week 1, not knowing what his role will be for sure. And then Zach Ertz is questionable with calf injury. It's up in the air whether or not he will play. So this game is awesome from a total perspective. 52.5 Chiefs 3-point favorites. But kind of hard to pin down, other than the quarterbacks, where exactly you want to go. I would throw Travis Kelce in that kind of lock-ish type play as well. Let's go to you, Locks. Obviously a great game here, but picking between these skill position players is, at least in my opinion, a tough task this week.
Yeah, I would agree. There's a lot of ways to go here. A lot of weapons, a lot of different types of ways you can go with this game, and it's going to be high scoring. Definitely going to be a shootout, highest scoring game in my opinion. I'm leaning more towards the Mahomes side, but with the ownership on Murray, I could see pivoting there, to be honest with you, because he's going to be lower owned. And Murray, let's be honest, Murray's a stud. I think he could easily break the slate. He has that potential. He just doesn't have, obviously, a couple weapons, but I like Hollywood Brown. Hurts, like you said, is questionable. I will be playing a little bit of Andy Isabella at 3K, the stone minimum. I think he's going to have a little bit of a role there with Rondale Moore.
I mean, they just don't have much left.
Yeah, and I was with you on Rondale Moore. I had him in all week too, and then he got hurt, so that kind of threw me in a loop. But as far as that side goes, yeah, and I actually like James Conner a lot this week, to be honest with you. So I might even go to the other side and throw a Mahomes Kelce in there with a James Conner on the other side. I actually don't mind that at all. That might be popular, but it hits a good stack. So that's where I'm leaning. I don't really like any of the receivers on the Chiefs yet, just because I don't know how who's gonna get all the targets. Kelce's gonna get them, so that's an easy way to go on that one.
Because I mean, Rondale Moore, I think they had a big role planned for him. I'm kind of upset that I can't play him here. He would have been one of my highest owned guys, to be honest. I would think it would be Isabella who would have been working directly behind Rondale Moore in that role. He seems like the most obvious fit to me. I'm not 100% sure on that, but he does seem like, I wouldn't go crazy, right? You don't need to go crazy on Isabella to get over the field, but yeah.
I like Dortch too.
Yeah, tell me about Dortch, Snyder. I don't know that much about him yet. A guy that I do need to research, before lock tomorrow. But yeah, talk about Dortch and then this game in general, Snyder.
Yeah, he was a stud at Wake Forest. Only played 2 years there and then went to the pros. So he was targeted early and often in the preseason. He actually had 27 targets in the 3 preseason games he played. It was really only Dortch and Isabella playing in those preseason games, but they were definitely looking to target both of those guys. I think Dortch has got the upside to kind of take the top off the defense here. I think he's the 3K guy I'm going to be looking at it. Basically no ownership. I think he'll be like 1% owned maybe at most. I think AJ Green is fine. I mean, I generally like to target some of these old dusty receivers earlier in the season before they kind of start wearing down. They're completely 100% healthy coming in here. I think Marquise Brown's going to be the obvious most popular pairing with Kyler here. So I don't mind going with Green or Dortch there. I do like James Conner quite a bit here. I think that 7K price tag is a good price tag for him. I think he's going to have the full role here. I think you'll see like 20 carries. He's going to have a role in the passing game too. We saw last year he had 5, 6, 7 catches many times last year. He's got that upside. You think he had like a 40-point game last year and a couple 30-point games? I think that's on the table for him this week. So I'm going to be high on James Conner. And then for the Chiefs, I'm looking at Mahomes. And then obviously Kelce's right up there. I think he's going to be, I mean, we could probably see Kelce at like 20, 25% ownership maybe. But I think Kelce's.
He's such a difference maker at tight end. Like, especially on FanDuel, I just always play Kelce. Just the touchdown upside is such a differentiator.
Yeah, the one thing that I'm kind of worried about with Kelce coming into this year, though, is how defenses are going to play this Chiefs team now, because they were at times last year we had seen those high safeties kind of blocking off Tyreek and stuff. It'll be interesting to see if they bring that safety in and kind of bracket Kelce with double teams this year or not. So that's something I'm interested to see as the season goes on. What do you think they're going to play Kelce different this year? Or?
No, I mean. They arguably have more speed than they did last year. Yes, they lose Tyreek Hill, but Valdez Scantling is an absolute burner. McCole Hardman is a burner, and then Sky Moore can run as well. So I think Mahomes is going to absolutely shred in this game. The Arizona secondary is banged up. They're bad anyway. It's indoors. And, man, you're not going to hand the ball off to Clyde, and
Yeah, I'm off the running backs for sure.
Yeah, I just think they're going to let Mahomes do his thing. I think the way to play Mahomes, I'm going to have Kelsey, frankly, on most teams that I have Mahomes, and then I don't mind playing just those two together. But then I'm just going to mix and match the other. If you had to pick one Chiefs wide receiver to pair with Mahomes, Locks, who would it be? Because that's a big question mark for me. I lean Valdez-Scantling, but I could see making the case for the other three guys as well. I mean, Juju, I think, is going to be the most popular, but I think it's MVS that has more upside, at least from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, and that's the way I was leaning to is MVS. I wouldn't be surprised if they use Sky more in a few different ways, to be honest, too. But yeah, I could see MVS, and he has the potential to break a slate too.
He does. That's kind of what I'm looking for, and relatively cheap too. So
I don't think any of those Chiefs pass catchers outside of Juju and Kelsey are going to see any ownership either.
Nobody knows where to go. Everyone's kind of afraid of it. I get it. I'll have exposure to all four of those guys. I think MVS is going to end up being my highest own, but it's something that I'll continue to look into up till lock tomorrow. That'll do it for this show. About 2 hours of hopefully insightful winning analysis. We might have to revisit the format of the to get out of here a little bit earlier on a Saturday night, but it's all good.
Sure.
For week one. We are excited. Of course, you guys are. Thanks for tuning in. As always, congrats again to Kenny Good People for that ticket. There'll be more tickets given away on this show in the future. We do appreciate you guys all tuning in. Please hit the like, hit the subscribe if you haven't done so yet. It does help us bring you all these free YouTube shows all season long. So we do appreciate you watching. Please do that for us if you haven't done so already. We will be back next week, same time, same place. For Locks, for Snyder, I'm DC, and we'll check you next time.